Dan Venteicher, the Iowa dairy farmer, is a social media sensation. He advocates for the dairy industry with truth and tact, capturing the hearts of millions with his educational and humorous Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram posts. He excels at dispelling misinformation about dairy production and enjoys sharing about his day-to-day life as a young farmer. With almost 3 million followers across all platforms, he is one of the largest agricultural influencers and is the #1 dairy influencer in the world. Along with operating a successful online business, Dan owns and operates Honey Creek Dairy LLC with his brother Don, and our 4th generation of their family farm to dairy farm. Dan is married to his wife Jamie of 10 years, and together they have 4 young children. Please help me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Mr. Dan Venteicher.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Truly, it is an honor to be here. It has been a long time since I've been out on this stage in this capacity, and you might be wondering, what's the iPad doing here? Well, that's why. 4 kids serving on the school board, doing functions in our church, running a social media business, and a dairy farm business doesn't leave a lot of room for memorization. But where I do want to start here real quick is, I know it was 15 years ago when I did FFA stuff. I do remember activities working very well. And what I personally like to do if I want to memorize a lot of stuff in a short amount of time is something called a mnemonic device. So a mnemonic device is something to help lock a piece of information in your brain. So I want to start with one here quick, and this is the only audience engagement I'm going to ask of you this entire night. So what I want you guys to do, stay sitting in your chairs. Maybe some of you have seen this trick. Try not to ruin it for everybody else. Like I said, it's been a while since I've been in this scene, but everyone just put your hands out, put your thumbs up, flip the thumbs over, flip the hands over, interlock those fingers. Make sure those thumbs are pointing down, okay? So you're gonna take your thumbs, take your hands, go like this, lock them together, okay? Everyone like this? Now flip them over. You're going like this. See, thumbs, start over. Thumbs down, interlock them. Got the thumbs down, right? Flip them over. All right, one more. Let's do 2 more. Let's do 1.5. We'll do a small one at the end. So take this finger, your right finger, put it on the left side of your nose. Take your left finger, put it on the right side of your nose, okay? That's pretty simple, right? Okay, now flip them. That one I might have given that one away. Now, the last one. This is my last mnemonic device, and I promise we'll tie this in. Everyone make a circle. I want you to do what I tell you to do, okay? Do what I tell you to do. Put it on your chin. Put it on your chin. So there's a note there. Everyone did what they saw, but they did not do what they heard. And so we're going to come back to that here towards the end of our presentation. There's something regarding those exercises and our distraction and how much we pay attention and doing what we see other people do, but maybe not doing what we hear them doing. So as I've said, 15 years have gone by since I last stood on this stage, and a lot of life has happened in those 15 years. 15 years ago, I was elected state FFA president. And it was a huge honor and something that truly changed my life. But since that time, I graduated from Iowa State in 2013 with a bachelor's degree in dairy science. I have a BS in dairy science. That BS stands for a bachelor's of science. And I joke that my part-time job is now to fight BS about dairy farming, and that BS stands for something else. And that's been a large part of my life over the last couple years here. 2014, I married Jamie, the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She's here on slide 2. And she's almost perfect, almost perfect. She has one major flaw. She made one kind of major questionable mistake in her life, and that was marrying me, a dairy farmer with ADHD. I joke that I got her to say yes to my proposal before she knew what dairy farming truly was. In 2015, moving on, 2 big things happened in my life. The first one was that I lost my mom. This picture here was taken almost a year to the day when she passed away. And I bring this up there, this isn't even the main point of my keynote here tonight, but it's something I always feel obligated to talk about, is my mom in that picture was going through a lot of things that I had no idea she was going through. And had I known those things, I may have treated her a lot differently. So there's a small lesson, and I leave this as a small note, to just be kind. Everyone's going through something you don't know anything about. And unbeknownst to me, too, in that picture, my mom was going through a lot of things that I didn't know about, that she had struggled with her whole life. So 2015, lost my mom. The second part of 2015 was my brother and I bought into the family farm, which you heard there at the introduction. My uncle sold his half of the farm. My brother and I, we started Honey Creek Dairy, and the next 3 years were spent farming nonstop, trying to make you guys a beginning farmer. Then, when I was 27, in March of 2018, it was my turn. I was diagnosed with cancer. This is it's my oldest daughter. At that time, it was my only daughter. This is Hattie in that picture. 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I spent that spring and summer beating it with 4 rounds of chemo. So each round kind of looked like this. Each round was Monday to Friday, and it was 5 days a week straight, and it was pretty much 9 to 5 straight chemotherapy, 8 to 9 hours a day of a very strong chemotherapy, because I was a 27-year-old male who they could beat the snot out of to help cure the cancer. And then we took 2 weeks off, and then we would start again. So the rounds kind of looked physically like the first 2 days I was okay. I could get caught up on some farm things. The next 2 weeks, really for me, were spent too weak to lift a gallon of milk. And so we did that 4 times. And fortunately, we hit our 5-year mark back in 2023 and are now in full remission. So we are very grateful. Thank you. Thank you. Truly thank you. But I bring that up because cancer is actually not the hardest thing I've ever gone through in life. And we'll come back to that here in a minute. In 2017 to 2024, I've had 4 beautiful kids, built a robotic milking barn, and started a social media journey, which is what brings me here to all of you tonight. Iowa Dairy Farmer began in March of 2021, a little over 4 years ago already, when I posted my first TikTok, and a few years later, we have almost 3 million followers across the platforms. We reach 10 million people on average per month. It's been as high as 20 or 30 million people per month, millions of engagements. And what we found is really 2 things. People want the truth, and they don't want to be pandered to. They want the truth. They don't care how ugly or how uncomfortable it is. And I think the most important thing we've learned is they don't want to be made to feel stupid. How often do we accidentally do that? People can feel safe to come to our page and ask a question because people want to learn. Why blame somebody for knowing something they don't know? And I think that's the bulk of what the success of our page has landed us on. But that's not actually what I want to talk to you about tonight. Over the last 2 years, it's taken me 2 years to learn this lesson. It's not how to be an influencer. It's not how to create good content. It's not how to gain followers. What I really want to share with you tonight is the most important lesson I think I've ever learned in my life, and I've learned it over the last 2 years. And it's this. Your dignity lies in your freedom. Your dignity lies in your freedom. But what is freedom, okay? So we in the United States, we tend to think we have the ultimate grasp on freedom, right? We're the land of the free and the home of the brave. Like, we know what freedom is. But I want to challenge you tonight that if this is where your definition of freedom stops, it needs desperately to be further refined. Our country does get many things right with freedom. Please don't get me wrong. We are so privileged to live in this country. We have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to vote, et cetera. The list goes on. We're so privileged to live here, but our own personal freedom can't stop there. My goal is going to be to convince you that if this is where your definition of freedom stops, you actually aren't truly free. So what is freedom then? Before we dive deep into that, let's think of the opposite of freedom, right? Sometimes helping understanding the light, we need to look at the contrast between the light and the dark. So when you think of the opposite of freedom, perhaps a certain word like slavery comes to mind. And I need to add a disclaimer here too, that I hope this goes without saying, the general concept of slavery, especially what's happened in the recent, I think less than 200 years, very recent history of our country, the general concept of slavery is absolutely abhorrent. There's no excuse for it. Sadly, it's plagued humanity for millennia and has been a scourge on society, but just as sadly, it still exists. We just have the privilege of not having to stare at it. It doesn't happen here where we can see. But the real depth of its existence happens on 2 points. The first is that, yes, the form of slavery where there's poor to possibly inhumane working conditions for little to no pay under oppressive authority still exists and is alive and well in other parts of the world. Very much unfortunately. That's the first part. The second point is where I want to focus your attention tonight. And by no means do I want to act like we're comparing the two is, I don't want everyone to go home and they ask, oh, hey, how was the keynote? And they say, well, Dan compared everything we're going through to slavery that happened, in the last two centuries here. I'm not doing that. But when it comes to freedom, I do need to challenge you with this thought. If someone is gaining a significant financial benefit by treating someone else like a commodity at their expense, if someone's gaining a significant financial benefit at the expense of somebody else, what does that sound like? So my second point is this: are you free? Not the country, not your neighbor, you. Are you free? Before we get to answering that, I want to help understand how we got here, because especially after the year 1950, the pace of our civilization changed dramatically, and especially after the year 2010. So dramatically that I truly believe this, and it's changed so much in recent years that I think we'll look back when I'm much older at how we're doing things now and think we didn't handle it well, because I do think you guys are part of the largest social experiment, the largest scientific human social experiment that's ever happened. And I think we'll look back in 20 years and go, we did not handle that well at all. So we're going to rewind here to the year 1417 in Germany. Historians and scholars can actually kind of pinpoint a certain moment when maybe this is what started the catalyst that changed the pace of the way we live life. So in 1417, something happened in Germany. It was the clock, the installation of the first public clock. Now, we've had other ways of telling time, right? We had sundials. We always had a rough idea of what time it was. But think about this. This actually created something unexpected from the townspeople. Complaints. Townspeople lamented. Now all we do is we live life by that dang clock. We wake up when it tells us to wake up. We go to sleep when it tells us to go to sleep. We go to work when it tells us to go to work. It runs our lives. All we do is live life by this clock. Complaints. Now let's take one of their claims, one of their complaints with some legitimacy. You know when you went to sleep before you knew what time it was? When you got tired. That's it. Especially in the winter, it's dark early, you can't work outside, you can't work inside, you can't see very well, even by candlelight. You got tired, you went to sleep. Now, what do we do today? Well, you look at your clock, like, oh, I'm kind of tired. Oh, it's only 6:30. I can't go to bed yet. That's lame. I got 2 Netflix shows to catch up on. I got to watch this movie that just came out last week. I can't go to sleep. Already in the year 1417, we see an aspect, albeit a very, very small aspect, of your freedom eroding. Now, you might be thinking, clocks, freedom, like this is a bit of a stretch. Let's take the tinfoil hat off. This is a little bit dramatic, but hang on. Let me unpack this a little bit more. So we're going to move forward to our next pivotal moment that further advanced the pace of life. What happened in the year 1879? It happened with a gentleman named Thomas Edison. The light bulb. The light bulb. Now, obviously, we need to acknowledge that this was and is a major revolution, right? It's advanced the pace of civilization, and it's saved lives. We can't acknowledge this isn't something short of a miracle, but think about this. Let me point a few things out. Before the light bulb, what happened when it got dark? You quit working, or you went inside. That's it. You quit working. You've probably heard of the phrase burning the midnight oil. Maybe some of you have heard your dad say that, working through the night, chiseling, cultivating, whatever, we're burning the midnight oil. Where does that phrase come from? Well, I can tell you. The phrase burning the midnight oil originated because before the light bulb, if you were staying up through the night to get something done and you were burning precious, precious oil, you had better have a darn good reason to burn that midnight oil, the oil that was only supposed to be used in an emergency. So working past dark for a bulk of humanity was unknown, unheard of. You have better had a good reason to burn precious oil to keep working. Now, you just flick a light switch, and if you want to be even lazier, you just yell at the Alexa to turn on the lights and you work as late as you want. What a paradigm shift compared to the way our civilization has lived for millennia. So all 3 of these pivotal moments, and we're going to get to the third one here in a second, but they're all great. They're all great. But are they good? And some of you say, well, yeah, they're good, but here's what I mean when I say good. I mean, is it good for your mind? Is it good for your soul? So that's our second pivotal moment, the light bulb. And we now have time and light directing the course of our lives. Honestly, if we stopped here, I think we'd be just fine. Our concept of personal freedom wouldn't be affected, albeit we'd have a lot less creature comforts than we do today, but we were okay. Life was hard, but we were okay. Moment number 3, occurring just recently in the year 2007, the iPhone. A clock, a light, and the ultimate form of distraction. And the start of your voluntary loss of freedom. And this is the major aspect that changed the pace we live our life in the year 2010. Before this, flip phones, and before that, phones that were on the wall. I'm old enough to remember when we didn't even have wireless phones. You had to go to the wall, and I didn't have the turn dials, but we still had the buttons you had to memorize. I still have my childhood friends' phone numbers memorized. But before this, phones were simply just a quicker means of communication. Better than letters before that, better than Morse code before that, better than smoke signals before that. It just improved the way we communicate, but it's adapted and evolved into something so much greater, but so much more dangerous if we aren't careful, because this is where my second point comes in from earlier. Are you free? But first, what is the true definition of freedom? And here's the most common answer you'll get. And it's literally the answer I got just a few months ago out of a group of 8th graders I teach on Wednesday night. So I was asking one of them, like, what is freedom? What is freedom? And one of them eagerly jumped up and he's going, well, that's easy. Do whenever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. That's freedom. It was a no-nonsense answer to him. Here's what the real definition of freedom is. Freedom is not having the ability to do whatever you want. Freedom is having the ability to do as you ought. Let's say it another way. Freedom is not doing whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. That is not freedom. Freedom is having the ability to do what you should do. And a quick disclaimer, I'm so hesitant to come off and talk about these topics because I don't want to come off like somebody's grandma. It's like these kids and these dang phones, that's the problem today. Or I feel like sometimes I'm selling a diet to healthy people. But I really want to stop and visit these concepts. Freedom is having the ability to do as you ought. Freedom is not doing whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. It's having the ability to do what you should do. Freedom is not just being able to say yes, everybody. Freedom is not just being able to say yes. It's also having the ability to say no. Because listen, let me challenge you with this. If you can't say no to something, are you free? If you in your own personal life, you can't say no to something, are you free? Brent Johnson opened up this first general session, and he talked about having the courage to say yes, and that's so important. I don't want to diminish that or take away from what Brent's trying to say and have the courage to say yes. But if you can't say no, your yes means nothing. If you can't say no, your yes means nothing. Here's where this concept meets real life. We are all averaging 3 to 4 hours a day on our phone, every single one of us. Everyone likes to make fun of Gen Z and all their screen time. It's the millennials, it's the boomers, it's everybody. We are all spending 3 to 4 hours a day on our phones. With this kind of social media and this kind of screen time, we are distracting ourselves into mental and spiritual oblivion. We are distracting ourselves into oblivion, and we can't say no. I couldn't say no, and here's what I mean by that. In 2023, I took the second half of the year off of TikTok. I did not take the second half of the year off of consuming. I took the second half of the year off of creating, and that was a major fault, and here's why. Because at that point in my life, I'm 32 years old. I find myself anxious all the time. Like, why am I anxious? I'm 32. I shouldn't be anxious. And there's something in our society, this is something as men and as society you just don't talk about. Like, oh, you're a man, you can't be anxious. But then we wonder, why are 99% of suicides men? We don't talk about anxiety, but then we don't ask the hard questions like that either. Fortunately, my anxiety never got that severe, but I was anxious all the time. Why am I anxious? Strong enough anxiety were affected my daily life. I'm a 32-year-old man. I've married a beautiful woman who's almost perfect. Married a beautiful woman, bought a farm, beat cancer when my mom couldn't. I had, at that time, 3 wonderful kids in the robot barn of my dreams. Why am I anxious? There's no reason for me to be anxious, but I know why now. I couldn't say no. When I wanted to scroll, I scrolled. When I wanted to snack, I snacked. When I wanted to watch TV, I watched TV. That's freedom, right? I was free. I was completely free. I did everything I wanted to do, whenever I wanted to do it, whenever I felt like it. I was completely free, right? That's what we would say freedom is. That's when this started to change for me. That's freedom. I scrolled when my kids were finishing eating. I scrolled when they were taking a bath. I scrolled before bed. I scrolled waiting for feed to mix. I scrolled waiting at the doctor's office, and on and on and on. Dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. That's the addictive hormone your brain craves. I was addicted, and odds are so are you. Because we spend 3 to 4 hours a day on our phone, guys, and it's not all 3 to 4 hours at once. I've given this talk before, and these old timers come up and say, how do you have 3 to 4 hours a day to sit and be on your phone? They thought it was all at once. It's not all at once, and we all know that. It's 5 minutes here, it's 10 minutes there, it's 10 minutes here, it's 5 minutes there, and it all adds up. But just because it occurs in a bunch of little pieces doesn't mean it's harmless. It does not mean it's harmless. Social media caused greater anxiety and did more harm on my mental health than cancer ever did. So your dignity lies in your freedom, right? Your dignity lies in your freedom. And where was my dignity? It was in the hands of people who saw me only as a commodity. And that's where you, me, and all of us here come in. These apps, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Now, obviously, I'm a major user of these apps. I use Facebook. I use TikTok, assuming it doesn't get banned. I use these apps, and I will continue to use these apps. I'm by no means saying this is a keynote to where Dan told us to go home and delete all of our social media apps, because that's what he's telling us we should do. I have no plans to delete these apps. I have full plans to keep using these, to use what we're doing on our social media to reach people about the truth of the agriculture industry, the truth of the dairy industry. I plan to keep on using them, but to be able to do that, you have to know how. Humanity has pioneered virtually the entire globe. We know more about the oceans than we ever have, so what's the next great frontier? It's your mind. Your mind is the next great frontier. If you have 20 minutes to fill, Facebook wants it. If you have 5 minutes to fill waiting for the bus, TikTok wants it. If you have 5 minutes to fill at the end of class, Instagram wants it. You are the commodity to them. And they don't care about you. They are coming for every second of your life, and they don't care about you. We know excessive screen time is bad for our brains, right? Like, we know it. Like, here's a clear example of what happens when you can't think straight. You become a Hawkeye fan. We're in Ames. I had to do it. We're in Ames. Consider this. I remember a time when you could literally scroll to the end of Facebook. You could reach the end of Facebook and Instagram. You'd keep scrolling because you wanted more dopamine and you wanted more content, and you'd see a little bubble that said, that's all for now, come back later. You don't see that anymore, do you? You just keep scrolling endlessly, and it never ends because you need the dopamine, and they know you need the dopamine. They know you need it. Doesn't this sound like the opposite of freedom? If you remember anything, remember this: attention is the new oil. People are making more money off your attention than they are off oil. Attention is the new oil. Your attention is their profit. They want every second of your life. They want your dignity. They want your ability to say no, to say yes. They want every second of your life. Now, before you ask me to take off my tinfoil hat again, we're getting off in the weeds, consider this quote. This is from the first president of Facebook. This is his exact quote. The thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. This was in 2017. So somewhat recent, somewhat not recent by today's standards. Their business plan is how do we consume as much of your conscious attention as possible. Consider what he said next. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. God only knows what it's doing to our brains as adults. Look at me. And it's possible for everyone to fall into that anxious trap. It's okay till it's not. Like maybe right now you're spending 3 to 4 hours a day on your phone and it's fine, but it's okay till it's not. You can smoke cigarettes until you're 65 years old and it's okay till it's not. And that's where I want to challenge you guys here tonight. So what do I want for you? What's the point of all this? What do we do? Get rid of clocks? Forget the light bulb? Go back to time with no phones? Go live like the Amish? Now, I make this joke that we used to look at Amish people, they'd go driving down the road and we kind of look at them and we go, ha, morons. That's what people would say. I feel like now we're getting to the point they're looking at us and going, ha, suckers. Because we're addicted to dopamine and they're not. So what I want you guys to do is, what I want for you to do, what I want for everyone here, is to take your attention, your mind, most importantly, your dignity back. And you don't have to get rid of any of these things to do that. But you do need to learn how to be free. You do need to learn how to say no. So recall the exercise I did earlier, this thing. And again, I'm trying to connect this dot as a mnemonic device. So maybe if you ever think of this, you'll think of this presentation. So you were too distracted really to see how I actually did it. So while you guys were all doing this, when I brought my hand up, I flipped it. And so I was just going like this. So it was pretty simple. But you guys were so distracted watching your neighbor, seeing how everybody else is trying to do it, trying to figure out how they're doing it, that I was up here. I knew more than you, so I used that to my advantage. Same thing with this one. This one I let go. I wasn't very clean with this one, but all I did was I just switched my fingers up here. Pretty simple tricks, and then this one was really obvious. But that's how we did. I know it's a small example, but follow me to the bigger and real-life application here. We are distracting ourselves into oblivion, truly. And we can't say no. And I have listened to dozens, through my FFA career, I've listened to dozens of keynote speakers over the years. And by no means do I want to downplay how great of speakers they were, but for some reason, none of them ever truly created a lasting impression on my life. And I'm not saying that's their fault, but I know why. I've been too distracted all my life. I really grew up in the era, the pioneering of the smartphone and the internet. I was too distracted. I'd hear a great message and I'd drown it out with too much scrolling, too much food, too much TV. That's where our problem lies, too much. And I thought of this, I saw this quote last week and I just can't get it out of my mind. The glory of God is man fully alive. And how do you be fully alive? Be free from your distractions. Now, maybe you don't assign to a religious belief or a faith or anything like that, but that's where I would actually challenge you with this more, is for you to be fully alive is the most important thing you can have, because if you don't assign to any kind of creator and your life is yours and it's in your control, how much more important that you aren't distracted, that you know what freedom is. It's more important for you that you take your life back, because if you're the one in control, stop giving that control to others who don't care about you. The glory of God is man fully alive. Throughout our life, we're continually on a journey. We're always on a journey to learn who we are. And I used to sit in these chairs and think that was impossible. I don't even know for sure what I want to do. I don't know for sure who I want to be. How do we figure out who we are? But I truly feel like I can tell you how to figure out who you are. Be free from your distractions to know who you are. I really think it's that simple. Be free from your distractions. Do you need that scrolling time before you fall asleep? Do you need to check how the photo you posted is doing? Do you need to fill every second of your life with some sort of noise? Or can you live life with no distractions? Can you say no? No to just one more episode, one more bowl of ice cream. This is where your dignity lies. And how do we do that? This is where I'm going to start wrapping up. How do we do that? Here's the best way. Do not seek an easy life, but seek the strength to live life. In order to learn how to say no, you must make yourself uncomfortable. I truly believe that a happier and more fulfilled life can be achieved by making yourself uncomfortable and learning how to say no. We don't grow in the peaks of life. We grow in the valleys. When things are hard, that's when we grow, not when they're easy. Those who are happiest in life and most successful are the ones who can tell themselves no. Think of an Olympic athlete. Think of an Olympic athlete. Do you think they just say yes to every desire? No. They tell themselves no all of the time. No to going out on weekends. No to alcohol. No to skipping exercise. And they're free and they're successful because of it. And here's my final point. They avoid mediocrity by avoiding excessive distraction. And this is my final point here. This is where I want to leave you. If you want to be mediocre, this is how you end up mediocre, is just keep distracting yourself. Now, this doesn't mean you need to be a CEO, a doctor, a lawyer, or a president. We all know mediocre doctors, lawyers, CEOs, and presidents. It does not mean you need to attain some high office or get some fancy degree to not be mediocre. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, and she is probably the least mediocre person I know. Now, in some ways, that might kind of sound like somewhat of like a weird compliment, like, Dan, why wouldn't you just say, like, oh, your wife's amazing? Like, why say she's the least mediocre? Because your default state is mediocrity. And that might bother some people. But your default state is mediocrity, because if you just scroll whenever you want to scroll and you snack whenever you want to snack and you're just doing whatever the culture tells you to do, and you keep doing that, you'll be mediocre. And my wife is so far from mediocrity as she can possibly be. Obviously, she's not perfect. Again, she married me. But there's a real desire in her life to be distracted and present, not just in her children's and her mind. My wife, every single friend group she's in, she makes better. Every single activity she joins, she makes better. Every single person she meets, that person's life is better because of her, mine included. Whatever mediocrity is, she is so far from that, and she's not a CEO. She's not, doesn't have an 8-year law degree. She is the least mediocre person I know. She's present. What's the theme of our convention? Be engaged. She is engaged in everywhere she goes. And she's an inspiration that way. She has a real desire to be present. So don't distract yourself into oblivion, please. Say no to these companies' demand to have every second of your life. Say no to these foods that demand every second of your life. Seek the strength to do it. Don't seek the easy paths. Easy paths are not great paths. I wouldn't wish losing their mom to cancer and a hidden disease on anyone, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't wish getting cancer on anyone, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't wish having anxiety on anyone, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Here's a really recent example. So James, my son, he's my 16-month-old son. This was a week ago today. He woke up from his afternoon nap around 4 o'clock, and he just didn't seem himself. At noon, he was fine. He was totally fine. 4 o'clock, he just didn't seem like himself. And so we're taking, my wife is holding him. I take his temperature, and the thermometer reads 104. I'm like, well, that can't be right. The thermometer's broken. So I run over to the other kids and scan the other three, and it's like 98.1, 98.2, 97.7. I'm like, crap. Go back to scan James again. It said 103.8. Like, okay, we need to call the doctor. So Jamie passes him off to me. I'm holding him. She calls the doctor. They say, bring him in. Jamie's getting ready, and I'm kind of holding James up, just kind of looking at him, trying to play with him, and he just goes limp. And his eyes roll on the back of his head, and he starts having a seizure. He just went completely limp, and then started having a seizure, and then he just bounced back and forth between having a small seizure and just being completely unconscious, and it was absolutely terrifying. We ended up flying 104 mile an hour to Manchester, the nearest hospital. We met the ambulance on the way. I grabbed my son out of the car seat, handed my unconscious son over to the paramedics, and it was, at this point in my life, one of the most terrifying things I've gone to. I wouldn't wish that whole process on anyone, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Do you think I don't look at James's every little wink and every little, when he blows kisses or when he laughs, when he crawls? Do you think I look at those with a lot more appreciation and admonition and admiration? Do you not think I cherish those so much more? I wouldn't wish that whole experience on anybody, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, for how I view my other kids, how I view my wife, how I view my life. Don't seek an easy path. Find the strength to live life. And unfortunately, where that strength comes from is the one area that is up to you. I can't tell you I can't pick your strength out for you. I can tell you where mine comes from. I can't pick yours out for you. But while you search for the strength to live life, you'll only find it if you aren't distracted. And it can truly be as simple as this. 45 minutes a day, set a timer on your phone. That's what I do. So I continue to use social media, but I have a 30, some days 30 minutes, some days 45-minute timer. When that goes off, I'm done. And you can also set do not disturb mode on your phone, and you can only allow texts and calls to come through on your phone. Because if you don't do that, you're going to get 100 notifications a day. The average Gen Z smartphone gets 100 notifications a day. Your brain can't handle that. Your brain was designed to know about 50 people within a 5-mile square radius, to eat 2, maybe 3 times a day, not snack, and work. You earned your dopamine back then. That's the way your brain was designed. It's not meant for 100 notifications a day. When you're working on something, and think of your brain being like on an interstate, every time you get a notification, there's the off-ramp. And it's hard to get back on. And so when you go to these conventions and you go places and you hear great ideas, if you're just distracted, your mind is not a fertile place for those thoughts to grow. The ability to sit in quiet and silence is the only way to cultivate your mind to be a fertile field to where it can generate, grow, and create ideas. Have more face-to-face interactions than face-to-screen interactions. Try do not disturb mode. Try to limit yourself to less than 45 minutes a day. Say no. Make a point to not use it on the bus. Practice silence. Practice being present. Don't listen to music next time you go for a run. I suggested that to one of my friends, and he thought I was a psychopath. Don't listen to music next time you run or work out. See if you can do it. Try practicing making yourself uncomfortable, because this is what I want you to remember. Your dignity lies in your freedom. Don't distract yourself into oblivion. Don't seek an easy life. Seek the strength to live life to the fullest. Become the person you were meant to be. You can only do that if you aren't distracted. Thank you.
Mr. Venteicher, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story and for continuing to inspire the future generations. Please accept this gift on behalf of the Iowa FFA Association.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Iowa dairy farmer, Mr. Dan Venteicher. I'm gonna go off stage.